Every day. Hello, all you beautiful people out there. This is Ven from the Venrez Rock Band. And we have a great show lined up today. I'll talk about that in a minute. Um, the new single, Sip the Cup, first week on radio. Tuesday's reporting day. So last Tuesday it was the fifth most added on the SMR chart. And it was number 3 most added on Mediabase. So I think won't take long to crack the top 40 on radio with that. But of course, needs to get into rotation for 4 or 5 weeks before that happens. The music video is on YouTube. Sip the Cup by Venrez, Venrez. You can watch the video there, give it a like and a nice comment. We also always close the show with the video, so if you stay tuned after the show, you can watch the video there. Although, if you go to YouTube, give it a like and make a nice comment. That helps us with everything we're trying to accomplish as a band. I'm really looking forward to this year. This new EP, Sip the Cup, is amazing. The title track, Sip the Cup, is the first single. And that ended up being the name of the 6-song EP. So you should be able to hear that on your local radio station pretty soon. Otherwise, like I said, you can watch the music video on YouTube, or you can listen to it on any of your streaming platforms: Deezer, Apple Music, Spotify, etc., etc. And we could definitely use all of your help and support. Stream that living piss out of that. We tend to get paid more money on tour. We get to tour bigger name bands to bigger crowds. When we have more bullets and ammunition for our agents to present to bigger bands. I think we're probably looking at June before we do a USA tour, and talking to bands like The Cult, Bush, Breaking Benjamin, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and several others. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Anyway, the guest today is Mr. Brian Glenn. I think we met several years ago plus. We'll talk to him about that when we were on tour. And he's been a friend and a fan for quite some time, I think maybe over a decade. And we'll ask Brian. I think back then he was either writing for a magazine or had a radio show, but now he's got Brian Glenn Television, and it's a very successful show. He does a lot of mingling and interviews with very powerful people in Washington, D.C. We'll try not to get too political on the show, but you never know what can happen. So he'll be coming on shortly. On Wednesday, February 28th at noon Pacific time, we're going to have the amazing musician Don Teschner. Don actually worked with Venrez in the beginning. He never toured with us. He was the guitar player, violin, mandolin, all of that for Rod Stewart all through the 90s. The guy plays guitar, violin, viola, lap steel, and dobro. He is an incredible musician, and the first record, Rich's Brew, he's all over that. And, whenever I need violin, I always go to him. He's an amazing musician. Every one of those instruments, he's just like incredible. So he'll be with us at noon Pacific on Wednesday, February 28th. And then on Friday, March 1st, we're going to have Mandolin Reese, who's at 1 o'clock Pacific time, who's more known as the Street Angel. And Mandolin has a very interesting story. She's living in Texas now. That's where she's from, although she was in LA for a period of years. I met her a long time ago. And she's she attended so many important events and met a lot of very powerful people. And she's got a great positive message for humanity. So I'm looking forward to having her on the show Friday. And just trying to think about something I might have forgot to say, but I think I've pretty much covered all of those bases. I did already talk about Sip the Cup on YouTube and being on radio, but again, you know, Tuesday's the report for the week. Last Tuesday was the first week, so we're being added like crazy to all these stations, and then, I'll find out tomorrow where we're at on the SMR chart. That's what everybody looks at now. A few years ago, you had the SMR secondary market chart, and you had the Billboard top 40 BDS, SMR's top 50, and the Billboard BDS chart went goodbye a year or two ago. So the chart everybody looks at is the SMR chart, and that's going to have all your huge name bands and newer bands on the rise like us that are making some noise on radio. We'll be going live with Brian Glenn in about 2 minutes, but make sure you make a note to join us on Wednesday at 12 Pacific with Don Teschner. That's going to be a great show. He's living in Montana now with his lady, and they have a great musical project, and they potentially may do a live performance for all of us during that show. At 1 o'clock on Friday with Mandolin Reese, the Street Angel. And so at this particular point, I think Brian is ready, so we're going to transition over and bring Brian on. Hey, brother, how are you doing?
Hey, man, it has been way too long since you and I spoke, and you look great.
Thank you.
The music's awesome, and I'm just I'm honored to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do the show. I'm trying to remember how we met. Did you do a review or something on us when we were on
I
tour?
did. I
Yeah.
did when I was working for a Fox station in Texas at the time, and I'll point out my first love was music. That's what I got. That's how I got into television. Actually, is talking about music, and so I had someone reach out to me and said, "Hey, you got to go check out this band. You guys were playing at a venue in Southwest Louisiana." So I drove
Uh,
over there, and I want to say it was called the Longhorn. I believe the Longhorn Club, I think. And I walked in, and the first thing I note was it was extremely loud, which is like, okay, that's cool. And you was like, okay, this band rocks. Like this is what you would see like in Los Angeles, circa, back in the 60s and 70s, and gritty guitars, and it was just great. It was a packed place, and that's where we first met. And I've kept up with you your entire career since then, and we've remained friends, and we exchanged text messages, and and
yes.
to pop in from yeah.
Yeah, we have. I mean, that was actually our first USA tour. Our first two tours were the United Kingdom and Europe, and that was January, February 2012 on tour with Fuel.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
yep.
That's it.
And then that summer, we toured with Alice Cooper.
Mm,
And
hmm
the next summer, we toured with Slash's solo project with Miles Kennedy. He had not gotten back with Guns N' Roses at that time. And
hmm
we kind of blew up after that. You saw the original version, although, you know, uh, I changed the lineup about 5 years ago and brought in some real young kids that are just great players. I brought in Gabe Mask on bass, who I think is one of the top three bass players, bass guitarists on earth. He was
Hmm.
he was 26 at the time. I think he's 30 now, so 4 years ago. And then Victor Singer on drums, who was 25 at the time. He's 29 now. And then, of course, we have Jason, although he's been struggling with recovering from stage 3 colon cancer.
Yeah, I. By the way, when you posted that up, and I instantly my heart dropped because when you know people, you follow people that are going through something like that, it really does hit you hard. And I certainly hope that he's recovering. I hope that people did all they can to donate to that
No,
link as well.
he's doing okay. He's in Ojai rehearsing for a one-off show with Juliette Lewis and the Licks. I think they're doing three shows. Unfortunately, we toured all summer with Buck Cherry behind the last record, Purgatory Awaits, the new record, Sip the Cup.
Hmm.
And, he was not physically able to do the tour. So we brought in Edgar Nieto, childhood friend of our bass guitar player, who Gabe is now an American citizen, but he's from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Edgar's from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So, and Gabe's a great singer. Yeah, he looks a lot like Kurt Cobain. So they had a residency show here at the Virgin Hotel for a year in 2022. Um, and it was called the 27 Show. So they had people that looked and sang just like all those stars that died at 27, like Hendrix, Joplin, etc.,
I
etc.
got you.
He
I
played
got you.
he played Kurt Cobain. So he did the backing vocals because Jason usually does that, and that was the first time I've ever been on a stage without Jason with me, um, and I know, and he hated it. I mean, he really wanted to be on the tour, but there was just no way he could do it. But it worked out really well, and of course he just started the chemotherapy, so it
No.
looks like we're not going to tour till June, and he should be 100% recovered by then. So we'll keep Edgar because we were a 5 piece when you saw us, and then
Hmm.
a couple years later we were a 4 piece, and we've remained a 4 piece. Although we're going to go to a 5 piece and keep Edgar and have two guitars. And if you get a chance to see us on tour, this lineup's 1,000 times better than what you saw before, and that was a pretty good lineup. The difference is, um, you can have great players who are passionate when they play or enjoying what they're playing, but I think for a lot of them it's more about getting paid than being a band. And with this lineup, everybody's just made the project a priority because these guys are all musicians and they play with different projects because that's all they do to make money. So they'll drop everything when we go on tour, and we fly
It's
Victor in from
awesome.
France. Yeah, that's the way that it goes. So were you writing? So was it it was a TV, radio, or
Yeah,
print?
it was television. It was just kind of I think you guys are, getting ready to load in back in the bus and pull out. It was just kind of a quick interview. I'll have to go back and dig and find the footage from that. I know it aired at one point, obviously, but yeah, it was just a kind of a quick recap of why you guys were there, where you're from, influences on your music. But yeah, that's how I met you, and I've just always loved music. I've always loved rock and roll.
Cool.
My first album, ironically, this is kind of an interesting chat, was actually Michael Jackson Off the Wall. That's my first.
Well, that's pop. That's the king of
I know.
pop.
And what's funny is my sister had AC/DC um, album, and I remember destroying it because I was told that that was the devil's music, and I
Oh,
remember
oh
destroying
boy.
And I just thought how dumb I was back then. Um, but you know, I enjoy all kinds of music. I mean, I had the chance to see Baselli perform a couple weeks ago in
Cool.
our nation's capital, in the inside the Capitol for a very special audience, and
Awesome.
to hear his voice just it's just massive. I mean, it's just I love it all. I love all music, and you know, once we get past this year and get past this election, I was telling your producer earlier, I really think, honestly, and I've had people, I really think I'm gonna put down the microphone for the last time in my career for what I'm doing, and I want to get back into music. I want to get back into something that makes people happy, and whether it's tour press, whether it's management, whether it's
See.
development, something. I that's what I want to do, and so
You know,
I don't know. We'll see.
my dad told me when I was a kid, he just said, son, do what you love and the money will come. And he was right, you know. But
Yeah,
before we segue into the next thing I'd like to talk to you about, you brought up Michael Jackson. I have a very interesting story about that because I grew up in the Encino Hills. So when the Jackson Five came from Indiana and bought the compound, which they still have on Havenhurst there, one of my good friends growing up, Jeff Block, his parents were the most lenient of everybody, and they tended to travel a lot and not be there. So we always had these great parties at his house. And the Jackson Five had just recently moved into the compound, which was literally right down the street. I guess they just heard all this music. So they crashed the party, right? And
it's great.
Michael wasn't there because at the time he was too young. Um, although Jermaine and Jackie
You
came,
know,
and their drummer came, and one of my childhood friends growing up, who was part of it, and who was there, Steve Altman actually became their tour manager for a number of years. So I spent a lot of time hanging out with those guys. Back at that time, Jermaine was like the big, kind of a bigger star than Michael. And, he did a solo album, although obviously we know the story. And as Michael got older, he just took it all to another level and had
hmm
you know, the king of rock, Elvis Presley, and the king of pop, Michael Jackson. So I spent a lot of time at their compound and, you know, got to watch Randy and Tito and some Marlon, all these other guys, and Michael grow up, because really at the time, they crashed the party. A lot of the brothers were just really young and joined the band later, like Randy, so on and so forth. So you have your own television show, and why don't you tell us about that before you
Well,
exit?
yeah, I was was working for some Fox stations in Texas. Worked in Dallas for an ABC station for a while. Did the whole news thing. Had a lifestyle show as well, morning show, afternoon show, which is that's the kind of format that you can talk about music. I mean, at one point, it's really interesting. I've had um, I, every top 40 back in the day, probably like anybody that's in the Billboard top 40, top 20 band, we pretty much have had in our studio to play. It was actually kind of nice. But I made a transition into, covering politics, covering the nation's elections and court hearings and all marches and all that stuff. So I program director for uh, for a network, and we focus in on that. And I spent a lot of time on the road. I mean, it's ironically, I just got back from the chiropractor because I spend so many hours on a plane and sitting down driving that I now have had horrible back problems and hip problems. So I deal with that. But I got into this kind of this industry covering politics almost by mistake, really. Um, it all kind of happened during the COVID um, lockdowns and well, that we saw, and I didn't like what the government was doing in terms of kind of telling people what they had to, what they could and could not do.
Right.
Um, whatever their stance is and stuff. I'm very much in. I'm very much I'm very liberal when it comes to independent freedom. I think people should be able to do what they want to do as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. So I was kind of vocal on some stances. I got fired from my job. That was great. It ended up being one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. To be completely honest with you, because I went from being fired from my job for criticizing this massive government, overreach that infringes on our freedoms to standing in the White House. So I can't complain about that. But I love music. I love food. I love cars. I love cigars. I love tequila. I love
Yeah.
politics. And that's the stuff. I like telling stories. I really do. I like sharing profiles. I mean, one of the things that I've been told that I have is it's kind of a spiritual gift, if you will, but it is the ability to connect people.
Right.
It's the ability to I was at a show not too long. Well, it's been 6, 7 years ago when I was at this particular incident happened. But I had a country music artist that I knew that was in the crowd, and he saw me side stage at a show, and he texted me and he says, "What do you like? Do you know these guys?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're friends of mine." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, I love these guys. There's so much." And so I end up connecting him with one of the band members. Next thing you know, this guy's got a record deal, and
Wow.
and he said, "Yeah," and he says, "Hey, it's all about you being selfless, of connecting us." I had no dog in the hunt. I just knew this guy played music and he was talented. I knew they had the label and the means to do it, and so I put them together and it happened. Um,
Hold
but
on a second,
that's
Brian.
what
We'll come back to that in a second. I got to take a quick break, real quick. I'll be right back. So yeah, you know what? He's really lucky because record deals are not easy to get, and you just really can't get anywhere unless you have one. We got our first record deal in April of 2021, and I opted out of the option on that contract, and we just signed with a new record company, Wake Up
I
Music.
saw that.
Yeah, Wake Up Music Group, and it's owned by the fabulous Pepper Gomez, and they really believe in us, and they're just doing things for us uh, that no one's ever done before, and helping us get to the masses. We're the most established band that a lot of people haven't heard of that need to, and hopefully we'll resolve that. We have a documentary that was shot on me in the band. That'll be going to streaming television later in the year. So it should be a great second half of the year. And I think between what we do with the record and touring and the documentary going to streaming television, you know, uh, 2025 could be a real big year. But yeah, I follow you all the time. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't. But I see you I'm like, damn, man. Like you're in Washington interviewing and rubbing shoulders with some very powerful politicians and Congress people, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, full disclosure, my girlfriend is Marjorie Taylor Greene, so a lot of people it's either going to trigger them here in this video to go crazy, or maybe they might
oh,
be.
all right, all right, okay. So that explains the picture with her that I saw on social media in Washington. Um,
Mm.
I try to leave my political statements to my songs. Our country is
That's
so
good.
divided. Yeah, well, the country's so divided, and
Yeah.
unless you're Kid
Well,
Rock.
it isn't. But you know what's interesting about that? I don't mean to cut you off, but it's divided. But the media is to blame on that. To be honest with you, because there is not a lot of difference in Americans. We love this country. We love each other. Um, but the media has created this huge divide to pit one another, each one of us against each other. You'd be really surprised that people who, I guess, originally might have really hated her, or perhaps they hate President Trump, or maybe they're going to find out that they have a lot in common. And at the end of a conversation, they end up saying, "Wow, that person's not what the media said they were." So, um, yeah. So look, I try to I try to like everybody, to be honest with you. I don't.
Well,
I
well,
was
well, let's talk about a little bit of politics as we go there. I think it's quite obvious that former President Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee and seek his
correct.
second term as President of the United States. Uh, so I think he's kind of a love him or hate him kind of guy, I think. Um,
Hmm. But what's
obviously,
interesting,
yeah, go ahead.
what's interesting about that is they're finding that more people now, people that might have been agnostic politically, that never paid attention to it, they were like, well, it's just never pay attention to politics. Those independent or agnostic politically minded people are actually leaning towards, they know that when he was president, at least we didn't have, wars break out around the world, and people had more money in their pocket and their cities were safer. So, it does. I mean, people are starting to realize that they might have been lied to by the media about things,
Mhm.
and that's one
Yeah,
of the reasons why I got out
yeah. I
of the
think
media.
I think Americans are extremely intelligent, and the pandemic allowed a lot of snow jobs, so to say. Although I think the American people as a whole, you know, are now well aware of what's truth and what isn't truth, and the media. There really is no media anymore. It's
Mm-mm.
it's really kind of crazy. I grew up with people like Walter Cronkite and these type of guys that really actually took journalism, which was my major in college, by the way. I
Mm,
just ended up
that's cool.
becoming a poet and a songwriter, and instead of a novelist or a magazine writer or a newspaper writer. I went to the University of Missouri with the best journalism school
Oh my goodness,
in
you
the
went to like
country.
the holy grail of
Yeah,
journalism
I
is
went
where
to
you went.
I went to the holy grail of journalism, but
You did.
God's plan is God's plan. But a lot of these media people seem more like talk show hosts voicing
You're
their
activist.
opinions. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not reporting the news. I happen to really like Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's some Democrats I like as well. Uh, but what I like about Marjorie Taylor Greene is she talks about how she feels and she believes it. And I like political people who shoot straight. Whether you agree with her or you like her or you don't like her. Um,
She's not going to lie to you. That's for
well,
sure.
I just think she's a strong, powerful human being,
You,
and she voices her opinion. And I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm an independent. Um, I have I voted different ways over the years.
so
Um,
you're an issues-based uh, voter rather than you don't
well,
obviously vote
I like to
political.
say that I'm an American and I vote which I think
There you go.
what I think is going to be best for this country. I didn't want to be affiliated, with either party. Although, you know, I've always preferred less government, more freedom, as opposed to
Sure.
far overreaching government. Uh, I
You know
mean,
what's interesting? I obviously I spend a lot of time with her, and when we go through airports, or just what, we don't really go out much in public for security reasons because
right.
she's got some serious threats. But people will come up to her and they may say, "I disagree with you on every single issue politically, but I respect you as a strong, independent woman standing up for women." And I'm like, she's a modern day feminist, is what she is. You think about it. She
Yeah.
stands up for women, and you can't hate her for that.
Well, I
That's
think
for
she
sure.
stands up for all Americans. I mean, we're seeing some, pretty scary stuff. I mean, things, you know, I'm starting to see things that remind me of the former Soviet Union. In all
Really?
honesty, um, I'm not like a huge Donald Trump lover, nor a Joe Biden lover. I actually don't really care for either one of them. I think that my life was better off under Trump's administration. There weren't any wars, which I think is a big reason they've come after him because nothing makes money like war. So when you don't have war for
Yeah.
4 years, you have lizard kings and queens who aren't getting paid, and it looks like they're making up for it. But this two-tiered, seemingly like justice system, whether you feel Donald Trump is guilty or not, Joe Biden's one of the most corrupt politicians there that's ever been in Washington. I think it's quite obvious that his family has benefited tremendously from him, in a way that's just not appropriate or
No.
potentially legal. I mean, if one of Donald Trump's kids had, had sat on the board of Burisma or had Chinese communist companies that are part of the Chinese government wiring them millions of dollars, they would have put them in jail, locked them up, thrown
Hey,
away the keys. So I think I believe in fairness, and I don't see any fairness really going on. What I see is a desperate Democratic Party that's trying to figure out what they're going to do. Who do you think is going to be the Democratic candidate? Because clearly it's not
this
going
is
to
a
be
great
Joe Biden.
this is a great conversation to have. And by the way, you're correct on all the assumptions on Joe Biden. You're absolutely correct. Um, I mean, factually, you're correct. So if some of our viewers are like, he's wrong, he's factually correct. And I know somebody really well that have seen all the evidence. Okay, so this is the magical question here. And I love playing fantasy politics because if I wanted to put somebody in office to beat another candidate, I think I could do that. Um, I don't think, and this is my opinion, that you'll see Joe Biden make it to the starting line. I don't think he's going to be at the convention this summer.
Oh, there's no way
Uh,
he's going to be the candidate. I,
no,
I, I mean, he committed all
so
these crimes he should be prosecuted for, and they're not prosecuting
correct.
him
Whereas
because they're
polling,
basically no, they don't
and the
feel
polling's horrible.
that he's physically or mentally competent to stand trial. If he's not
Yeah, yeah,
physically or mentally competent to stand trial, he's not physically or mentally competent to be president of the most powerful country
correct.
in the world. So
So
there's absolutely
what I
no
think,
question he's not going to be the candidate. Who do you think might be the candidate for the
I
Democrats?
think it's going to be Gavin Newsom, the state that you fled.
Gavin. Yeah, he's pretty slick. You know, he's good looking.
I think that you're.
He's highly intelligent, and um,
He
he,
destroyed the.
we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah,
And regardless of his record, um, he's pretty slick. Um, if he is
that's number
the
three. Yeah.
if he is the Democratic nominee and he wins, then I might not have just moved from L.A. I was born and lived my whole life in LA until last January of 2023, and I moved to Las Vegas because the whole state's destroyed. I mean, San
Hmm.
Francisco is virtually impossible to walk down the street. I flew there 6 months ago to see Placebo, one of my favorite bands. What was going, and I was on Geary Street, 550 Geary Street at the Adagio Hotel. Um, and what was, I stopped smoking, but I was smoking at the time. I stopped smoking a couple months ago, cigarettes. But, I went outside to have a cigarette, and what I saw on that street was mind blowing. In LA, I didn't feel safe leaving my house. Um, the the
I would agree with you.
crime was incredible. The homeless situation was incredible, and I was living across the street from the Grove and the Palazzo in a great area. I got to see the first
Hmm.
George Floyd riot because my my balcony faced Third Street, which really kind of bothered me. Watching them destroy my entire neighborhood, that scared me quite a bit. And the cost of living is just crazy. I mean, you got to pay 7 to 10 grand minimum for just a 2 bedroom apartment. Then you add all those taxes on top of it. So I moved to Las Vegas primarily because I didn't feel safe in my own city anymore.
Yeah.
And I got a 5 bedroom, 4,000 square foot house in a gated, guarded country club, Canyon Gate, for literally half what I was paying for a 2 bedroom apartment in LA. So, all of those factors had a lot to do with coming here. I agree with you. I thought potentially Michelle Obama might give some thought to it, but I don't see her wanting
Hmm.
to go back into Washington. Susan Rice could possibly be a candidate, but everybody,
Hmm.
Tommy Lauren seems to be brilliant and on top of everything. And she's been saying for months that it's going to be Gavin Newsom. And
I think
how,
so. You know why? He took it. Well, I said this probably 2.5 years ago. I thought that he was like, if you look at a sports team, he's like the next man on the bench that has charisma. He's young. He's from a big state, got huge money ties. He can sell the American people who will buy the lowest hanging fruit, the misinformed people, the ones that don't really look at the issues and look at the personality. I think they would go. I think they would support him. Now, with that said, I think Tommy Lahren to a certain degree is correct on that. I think he will be, but it's going to be if people run on policy. If they say, look at California, you've had a spike in crime, a spike in homeless, a spike in cost of living, a spike in this, a spike in that. Anyone with half a brain will say, well, if he did that to California, isn't he going to do that with the rest of the country? Um, And the answer would be, I would presume so. Michelle Obama can govern from the shadows, very much what they're doing, in my opinion, with Joe Biden is they're the Obama administration. This is just the Obama administration 3.0. This is just the
no,
third term.
this is Obama's third term. There's absolutely no
Hmm.
question about it. Um, and he's dangerous. Really. I mean, like, are you going to commit to Ukraine? Commit to Ukraine. I mean, Israel, Hamas comes over on October 7th, throws babies in the oven while they're raping their mothers, you know, killing
No, it's
people, young kids at a peace concert, rape, murder. I mean, it was their 9/11. More
yeah,
Jews died that day since the Holocaust.
yeah,
And could you imagine a country after 9/11 telling us to slow down? Let's have a
yeah,
ceasefire with Osama bin Laden. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
it's crazy. And
yeah,
I mean, it's just showing, it just kind of proves that Joe Biden's just trying to please too many people that have very, 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 very bad ideas. If Gavin Newsom becomes president of the United States, this country is over.
Hey,
It's
and he
really.
went to China about 6 months ago. He went over to China, and a lot of us said, now, why would he go to China? I think he's going to China to make his deals so that when Joe Biden leaves, he's already put his plan in place
Oh,
for stuff.
absolutely. Like 6, 7, 8 months ago, he was at the White House when Biden was traveling. I mean,
Hmm.
I think that this has been
Hmm.
set up for quite some time. Although, what I want to ask you is this: only the President of the United States is allowed to remove documents from the White House.
Hmm.
And maybe some of them remove documents that need to go back to the archives, so on and so forth. Although Joe Biden removed documents as a senator, which is illegal as heck. I mean,
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
literally he literally
Hmm.
smuggled classified documents out of the skiff
Hmm.
as a senator
Which
and as a vice president.
I've
And
been outside of a skiff, and I don't see how anybody gets away with that
well,
because you
he
check your phone, you don't walk into a skiff with anything. It's like going through a TSA, you know.
well he obviously did.
Yeah.
And I believe in equal justice for all in the United States. So if you're not going to prosecute him for crimes that he committed, because the independent counsel that stated that no reasonable jury would convict him of anything due to his decrepit physical situation and his and he's obviously suffering from dementia. I mean, it's an embarrassment if you look at the news outlets from Australia and different countries around the world talking about it. It's a joke. So
Hmm.
does our country really work? There's a 25th Amendment for a specific reason. Um, but I guess since Obama's really running everything, they're not going to invoke the 25th Amendment. But, you know, if it's proven that you've committed all kinds of crimes you should be prosecuted for, and
Yeah.
yet the reason for no prosecution is physical and mental, acuity. He's not fit to stand trial mentally or physically. Then you can't be president of the United States. So I
No.
don't know. All these contradictions are things people are.
No, man, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And if you look at the judgment out of New York a couple weeks ago, this massive settlement, there's no victim, there's no crime. The banks that were involved on all those real estate transactions say, based upon all of the documentation and all the numbers that were presented by President Trump at the time, they would do those loans again. This is something that real estate, this goes on every day in real
Well,
estate
they're trying
development.
to fight. He's not going to be convicted of anything. That was just a stupid civil trial that should have never happened. And that he's going to have to come up with a lot of money to go to appeal. It'll all be overturned.
Correct.
All of them will be overturned. Um, he had nothing to hide. I'm not a huge Donald Trump fan, although I think you know you're talking about the lesser of two evils. So um, my life was
A lot of
a
people
lot
don't.
better under Trump, and my life was
Yeah.
horrible under Gavin Newsom in California. So if it's between Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump, I voted to recall Gavin Newsom
I was in
myself.
California trying to get Larry Elder elected. If you remember, he was on the ballot.
He's a good man.
He is a good man. He's a good
You
man.
know,
I remember that night. They called that election really early. Polls closed at 7, and by like 7:10, they're like, "Party's over. Congratulations, Gavin Newsom survived." And it was just like game over. And I
well,
was like, "You mean to tell me how in the world they count that many precincts already?" But
so Gavin Newsom, who would be his running mate?
oh god, well, I like playing this game. This is fun. Um,
Well, you have a lot of experience, so
I don't really know. I don't know who a good. It's got to be. It's got to be someone, in my opinion, that is that can appeal to the progressive left. Because what's happened is the progressive left has hijacked the Democratic Party. So the Democrats of back when we were young, and it's not your dad's Democrat Party. It's a very It's very, very extremely left leaning Democrat Party to what it was in the JFK days. I think you would see, if we're just going to check the boxes here, I think you would see a um, a progressive, a female on that. I really do. I don't think it could
No,
be
I
uh,
think it'll be a very progressive female.
to
Uh,
balance off the
yeah,
young
I
white.
do. It could even
Yeah,
be somebody from the squad. It really could
I
be.
was just going to say a Rashida Tlaib or a Ayanna Presley or
Hold on
one
a
of these
second.
women.
I'm sorry, I got to take
Yeah.
another break real quick. I'll be right back.
Mhm.
I apologize to all of you. I think I had too much coffee this morning, so I'll be right back. Each and every day. When division is accepted as harmony, that is the day. None of us are free. None of us are free. Were things better back then? Everything's taken a different direction. Some would have gone, others remain. Memories run through your brain. So I'm thinking. Sorry, everybody, for the break. I had to take a quick break for a second. Happens sometimes. On stage as the singer of a rock band, you can't do that. Um,
No,
but
no, guitar solo, guitar solo.
yeah,
As he walks
right,
out,
right
Jason
now,
walks out and rips it.
we make sure that we don't have to leave the stage. But Rashida Tlaib could make some sense. She's pretty anti-Biden right now. Minnesota is a big swing state, and if Gavin's the nominee, she might make some sense. Um, who do you think might be the top two choices that Donald Trump would pick as a running mate?
It's
Because
a
we
great
we know
question.
for sure he's going to be the Republican candidate.
Right. Okay. So if you noticed, this past week, there was a list pushed out, and I was at CPAC in DC, a big conservative political action coalition, big group, and they put out a straw poll, and they had. Let me tell you who I don't. Who I this was in the poll, and I'll tell you who I don't like. They said Tulsi Gabbard. And I'm like, okay, whoever put Tulsi Gabbard on this list needs to just rethink their career because although I do appreciate the fact that she sees that maybe Republican policies is better for America, I'm not willing to give her the keys to the kingdom or roll out a red carpet for her in a leadership position, a top leadership position. So I'm going to get rid of her. Byron Donalds, congressman out of Florida, relatively new to Congress, is in a very red state. I think he's a great fighter for President Trump, but I don't think it's time for that type of leadership role. Next up was Elise Stefanik, congressman out of New York. Uh, she's pretty. She's on some committees. She's been pretty vocal about in Joe Biden and all the crimes that you talked about earlier. That's on the list as well. Dr. Ben Carson is a good one. And he's a very soft spoken man, highly educated, has been in the process before running for president, dipped out early in 2016, has never attacked the president. The president and him are very good friends. They spent quite a bit of time together. So that's obviously a consideration. Um, Marjorie's on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is but which is I've got my thoughts on that, but you've got some good people who I think he might pick though. It needs to be someone to balance out the counter punch. And if you remember, Mike Pence was about as exciting as a wet piece of toast.
Yep.
So it needs to be someone with a little bit more fire, but not too much fire because you got to have a ticket that's balanced out. And if you got a Trump, if you had a Trump and someone else that was really a firebrand, it might scare off a lot of independent voters that are like, "Ooh, I don't know if I could take that
Well,
and that."
what do you think of Tim Scott?
I I, I like Tim Scott, but there's just something about Tim Scott that that I don't like, and I don't. He's a big supporter of the president now, and I was just with him yesterday in South Carolina. He's definitely on board now, but he did run for president, and this is the way I look at it. If someone was willing to step on that stage and say, I have a better plan than that guy over there, then I don't personally think that there is a solid um, connection, someone, a support system for you. Because think about this for a second. If the polls would have stayed in Tim Scott's favor and enough people would have supported him, he'd still be in the race right now. Very much like well, Nikki
Hmm.
Haley needs to drop out. But I like Tim Scott. It's not a horrible pick, but I do want to see someone that has always had the president's back. And Ben Carson, even though he did run back in 2016, he did have the president's back.
I like him. I like him a lot. The issue is, um, you know, I Donald Trump lost the election to Joe Biden. So if Donald Trump won this election, it would only be 4 more years, and we're looking at. It's nice to have a candidate in office for 2 terms. Um,
Yeah. So whoever
I'd
that,
like to see Ron DeSantis be his running mate to set up 2028 because I believe that you know
yeah, there's a
I
couple things
believe
to
that
that.
I think that Ron DeSantis would make a good president, and if he was his running mate and vice president of the United States, I think that would set him up a lot easier in 2028 for 2 terms. I am an
Hmm.
independent. Although I don't like being, I'm a rebel, man, and I'm an Aquarius. We don't like rules, and so I just never really cared for big government. I come from a period of time, and probably you do as well, where I don't want to be told what to do, and I want my
Of
freedom,
course,
and I don't want to
of course.
post my opinion on social media and be censored or attacked, and
Well, the our freedom of speech is under attack right now, and you know this. It's big time under attack,
there
and
is no
if
freedom of speech in this
well,
country right now. Yeah, if you try to utilize freedom of speech, you can really get in trouble. I forget the name of. There's this new breaking artist who was making it big. He went to D.C. To watch the Donald Trump speech, and then he immediately left for his hotel. He wasn't even around before people moved towards the Capitol,
mhm.
and that unfortunate situation occurred. And he got so much flack from the left and all the money behind them that his record company actually dropped him. He lost his whole career,
Crazy.
and he
That's
went penniless. Um, you just don't prosecute your political opposition.
nope. But
But
that's what they're doing. They're trying to.
I think it's
I was with
obvious to the
I
to the
think I was with
country.
President Trump in New York on his first indictment, and then we flew back down to Mar-a-Lago. We had a press conference, and little would I know at that point that would just be one of many indictments, right? And one of many times of going to jail. I was with him in Georgia when he went to jail, and he turned himself in. And let me tell you something: the jail, the Fulton County Jail, is in the hood, and it goes through the hood. and the hood was lined on both sides, people with American flags, not just necessarily Trump flags, just American flags.
Right.
And they were waving them and they were waving, they were cheering them on. Um, People see that you, that what has happened, this injustice, this weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI, they see it. And and I don't wouldn't want that to happen to Democrats. I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody.
No, I would think the
Um,
Democrats would, would agree with it. You know, I, the division of the country has never been greater.
hmm
And I don't know if it's so much the media as much as it is with what the last election brought. Americans are pretty smart, though. I think,
Well, think about this for a second. Think about this. We were told by 51 intelligence officers who put their name on a piece of paper
yes,
that the laptop from hell was considered Russian misinformation. And the news and CNN, everybody else said it's just Russian misinformation. Well, now we know the laptop was real. And then all of the Ukraine, the phone call with Zelensky that Trump had to basically infer and to look into the corruption with Burisma and the Bidens. And then quickly that was he was impeached for an inappropriate phone call. The media has coddled this administration and they have not allowed the facts to come out. So I do place a
well,
lot of
they
blame
are
on.
coming out right now, and I believe Hunter Biden will be deposed this week on Wednesday. I don't. I like to see equality, although I think with what's happening with Trump, has got him a lot more of the African American vote in this country,
Oh
especially
yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with the men, because the African American community has been they've been really treated unfairly
hmm
for many years by people of different races, police departments. In different parts of the country. I mean, it wasn't that long ago.
Economically too.
It wasn't that long
Economically.
ago that George Wallace wasn't going to let a black student in the University of Alabama. People forget all of that. Uh, is the country inherently racist? I don't think so, but I think there's been some inherently racist leaders
hmm
that brought that up.
Well,
Um,
I like to point out that, Barack Hussein Obama was a duly elected president by a majority of white American voters. Think about the percentage of African Americans in this country is minute to the amount of whites, Asians, and Hispanics.
I
So,
understand, but in these swing
yeah.
states, the black vote, the Latin vote, you know, the suburb women, the soccer mom vote, I
hmm
mean, some of these states were won by Biden by 8 or 10,000 votes. I mean,
hmm
there might have been twenty
hmm
thousand votes total that got
You're
between
right. I think
that got
Georgia
him
was
elected.
less than 20. Yeah, I think Georgia was less than 20,000 votes. And you got to understand, some of these states like Pennsylvania actually had more mail-in ballots come in that then are even registered voters. And some of these things have been insane. And I had the fortune of being on the ground right after the election in all five uh, swing states, and every state's got their problems. Unfortunately, every state's got their problems, not just the five
They
swing states.
do. I would just think, you know, I'd like to see Donald Trump act a little bit more vanilla, be a little less attacking. I mean, there's just some things about his personality, but that's him.
hmm
As an American, and I mean, I'm suffering, bro. I mean, it's like
I know. I
it's
know.
very hard for me to make the living that I'm used to making with what's going on in this country. The economy is just in
People aren't
horrible.
spending money like they used to and they don't have. There's not a whole lot of consumer
No,
confidence in the market.
investors are very wary of what's going on. It just seems, from my experience in my life, that after JFK, the economy seems to thrive a little bit better with a Republican administration than a Democratic administration. And my father, God bless his memory, and my mother, who's still alive, were staunch Democrats. My father
Hmm.
told me, he was a cardiologist, a Stanford med school grad. He told me he made more money under the JFK administration than he ever had. Um, so there have been some wonderful Democratic administrations.
Hmm.
Uh, there really have been, uh, but you know what? At this particular point, I don't think I'm going to throw my vote away on some independent party candidate like a Jill Green or
Yeah, yeah, I
anyone,
think that would be.
or an RFK Jr. or somebody like that. And I don't see a Democratic nominee that I could consciously vote for. So I guess I will vote for Trump.
You know what's interesting? Do you remember about 5 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago,
I know
Mark
these
Cuban
people on my
announced?
show are going to hate me because I said I'm going to vote for
Oh
Trump.
no, they're
But
not.
I'm going
There's
to
more of your
vote for
viewers.
Donald Trump, period, for two reasons. Number one, my life was a heck of a lot better. And number two, there weren't any wars, you know. And
The bad
everybody's
guys of the
like,
world
he got
take
elected,
care of
and
it.
everybody's like, oh, he's going to take us to World War III.
It
Not
didn't
even
happen.
close. And right now, we're as close to World War III than we've been since the Cold War with
Yeah.
Russia, with the Soviet Union, and it's just like everything that the Democrats talk about the Republicans, they're guilty of. I just want to have an equal, fair country where everybody is treated the same. You know,
No. Well,
and
I
this whole thing that came down with the documents case for Trump, and then all this thing that came down with the and maybe Trump has made some mistakes and he deserves to be called on it. I don't know. I guess that'll come out in time, but Joe Biden
well,
broke the law.
Joe Biden had access when he was vice president. It's called the Presidential Records Act.
Correct.
Uh,
For a
yeah,
reason.
for a
Yeah.
reason. But if he had it when he was senator and vice president, that is not a part of that. That is it's clearly, but they're not going to prosecute him. We all know this. Um, they just won't do it. They're just not going to do it.
No, well, I mean, obviously they're not. I think I just see more from the Democratic Party about being power starved and having it
Hmm.
all be about money. And with Trump, you got a billionaire. It's not all about money. I really think he wants to put America first and organize
Yeah,
things. Plus you're in
I spent
Texas.
enough time with him. This man loves this country.
Yeah, he
He
does.
really does. He wants to for all Americans to survive, and he treats it like a business.
Well,
He puts
I know, I get it. I don't like his personality,
ah. You don't have to be friends with him. You
but
just
you know, I don't like calling people names and being aggressive. As aggressive as he is, his actions spoke for themselves, and I kind of believe
yeah.
in leading by example. But if it's Kamala Harris,
Oh
Joe
Lord.
Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom, there's no way I can vote for anybody like that. I really
Yeah,
can't.
I
I
agree.
I want to see our country go back to equal justice for all. I want to see our economy heal. I want to see people that are having to work three jobs instead of one not have to do that and have more quality time with their
Hmm.
children. You know,
Hmm.
and and I'd like to see no war around the world. I mean, a lot of Russians and Ukrainians have died, and
We're
a lot of uh, a lot of people in Gaza are dying too. Although when the Allies had D-Day and were heading towards Nazi Germany, you know, I didn't see any of the Western world complaining about destroying Dresden and bombing the heck out of Berlin,
Yeah,
let alone dropping two atomic weapons on Japan. Uh, it's just absolutely crazy, what's going on in today's world. Um,
there it really is. There's a report that came out today, and I'm not quite even sure it's public. So I'll send it to you privately. But yeah, I'll just send it to you. So I'll send something to you
send it,
privately.
send it to me privately. I'm
Mhm.
blown away
I was going to
that.
talk about it here, but if it's not widely public, I don't want to do that. It's not
It,
classified information or
it
anything
would
like
it
that,
would
but it
be,
was
it would be best that we do that privately. The
yeah.
show's kind of gone in a political direction. I
I want
really
to talk about music.
Yeah.
The Colt's one of my favorite rock bands of all time.
Yeah,
The Colt is one of my favorite.
I saw them 2 months ago. Actually, the Palms
Yeah.
Hotel down the street here. They have the Pearl Theater, and I saw Iggy Pop there. And a few months ago, I saw the Cult there, and they're one of my favorite bands ever. I really enjoy them. Yeah, we're gonna get off of politics now, move on to get back into music. I grew up in a time period where there was some really good rock bands. What do you think was the best rock show you ever saw?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll go back to I think it was the Monsters of Rock tour. It was Guns N' Roses, Faith No More, Metallica. I think that was it. And the Cult. Oh, the Cult was
Well,
opening
let
band
me
on that.
narrow it down because in today's world they put a lot of bands together for touring to make up for lost money during the pandemic, and that's more of like a festival situation. What
Right.
name band, headline
Papa
band?
Roach. Papa Roach, in
Papa
my
Roach
opinion, is
doing
one of the
the
best live active rock shows that you can go to, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah.
I
Say
just I love I just think they are. And there's some great bands. I'll give you a great example of a boring band to watch, but they're a good band. Chevelle. Love Chevelle's music. But if you're looking for any, it's not there. There's another band that's a great band, but
yeah,
very
they're
boring to watch. And I say boring respectfully. They're just not into the live
well,
show
you
much.
have bands that are great recorded and great live, and you have bands that are great recorded and are not good live. The best show I ever
Hmm.
saw was the '72 Jethro Tull tour. That by far was the best show I've ever seen in my life. They totally
Hmm.
blew me away. Although I think the greatest and the best live rock band today is Aerosmith, and no one will ever change my opinion on that. That band live is just there's
It's awesome.
something, and
I've never seen them.
I saw everybody in the day. I saw Led
Hmm.
Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street tour when Stevie Wonder was opening for them. You can watch it on YouTube. It's called Ladies and Gentlemen. They actually took the 4 or 5 shows in Texas of that tour in 1972 and made a movie out of it called Ladies and Gentlemen, which is an interesting show to watch. And, I saw that tour. I was 17 years old. I was 13th row center. I got to see Stevie Wonder open for him. And the Rolling Stones were, they were tight and professional. Mick Jagger, I think, might be the greatest front man ever. Boy, he did a great job. But the Emerson, Lake and Palmer brain salad surgery tour and the Jethro Tull Aqualung tour were just absolutely incredible. I really,
Hmm.
really enjoyed it. Although,
Have you ever seen Taylor Swift?
no, I've not gone to see Taylor Swift. I mean, I'd like to experience it. I'll tell you who I
Hmm.
did see, who I've never really been into till A Star Is Born, and obviously that Lady Gaga.
Mm, yeah.
Lady Gaga played a show here a few months ago at Park MGM, a 6,200 cap theater, and that woman's just incredibly talented. It but you just never know. You know, I forget the other girl, her name, other pop star's last name is Perry. Is it Elizabeth Perry?
Katie.
Katy Perry. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Katy Perry and Lady Gaga, very talented. I don't think,
Mm-hmm.
I think Lady Gaga is the most talented female musician on earth today. Although not the kind of following that Taylor Swift has. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to give credit where credit's due. Um, and she's very smart. She's a very good
Mm-hmm.
businesswoman, you know, because she shunned Hollywood and she filmed the whole tour, you know, made her own movie out of it. And you know, she knows how to market, promote, make money, and she's got a
Yeah.
tremendous following. And you know, according to everybody, you can't have a following with that unless you're in the Illuminati or signed a pact with the devil. All of that shit I don't believe in. She just was in the
Mm-hmm.
right place at the right time, and
Yeah.
you know, she's got a great young following. And I've listened to her songs. It's not really my cup of tea. Although the next time she comes through Las Vegas, I'm definitely going to buy a ticket and go see her because I want to see what it's all about. She's a great performer. She's a good musician. You know,
I've
there's
seen her
absolutely no
several
question.
times. It's a show. It's a show, and like you said, she's got a huge following. It's interesting how I have some friends that had a country band. They got signed with Big Machine Label Group, that massive label, and they had one single. It wasn't a single they wanted to put out, but that's what the label wanted. They pushed it to radio. They put it in some. They didn't get enough spins. They just kind of put it in some overnight stuff. It didn't really get a whole lot of traction. Then they just stuck them on the shelf for 2 years.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, it's just crazy. But
Oh,
my
excuse me.
point.
I got to take a quick break, real quick. There's a contractor at my door. Let me let him in. I'll be right
Okay, wonderful.
back. Sorry for all the
That's
breaks, but I'll be
no, it's
right
all
back.
right. I got
Yeah, I
to.
got to let him
All right,
in. There's a plumbing issue.
that's funny.
So let's continue on. You were talking about Taylor Swift. Were you moving on to another artist?
No, I mean Swift's insanely talented, and I think it's obviously the thing about Taylor Swift is she can really move the needle. I mean, if she brings anybody on tour with her, Vance, was it Vance Joy? I think it's who's everybody she brings out on tour to open as an opener blows up. Now, what they do after they blow up, if they don't hold it, they may fizzle out a little bit. But yeah, no, she's just huge. I mean, she can. I mean, you saw. I mean, hell, the NFL had more camera time on her than than the commentators in the booth. But
Yeah, I'm
you know,
okay with all of that. You know, Travis Kelsey's a great player, and you know, musical stars hooking up with professional athletes. I mean, you know, Tommy Lahren with what former Major League Baseball player now.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
You know, I
I'd
think
like to see a halftime show with like this is my disappointment about the Vegas halftime show, and I want to get your take on that. Only got about 2 minutes, and I got to jump off here
yeah,
real quickly, but since Vegas is so notorious for like the Rat Pack and all these historical, music,
yeah, I can't hear him.
a collaboration. I would have
You
seen
know.
a collaboration between old school musician, new musician, old school, new school, and that was your halftime. You're in Vegas. Why wouldn't you celebrate the culture of Vegas?
Um, I think millions of people agree with you on that. Uh, I stopped watching the halftime show a long time ago, and I go off and do
You mean when
something else.
instruments weren't plugged in, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, when they didn't even plug their instruments in?
Well, no,
Or
I
do stuff?
mean, the best halftime show ever was Prince doing
Oh no, I agree with you on
doing
that. That was
doing
great.
Purple Rain when it was raining. Uh,
Yeah,
the Rolling Stones played it. U2
they
played
were good
it.
too. Yep.
I'd like to see more famous rock bands brought in. They seem to have been going with a lot of different genres that have a lot of fans. It's interesting when I go check social media after the game, all the comments on the halftime show. But there was really nobody the last few Super Bowls performing at halftime that I really care for. So,
Yeah.
I just didn't watch any of it. Although it's all about money and ratings and whatever they do.
Yeah.
But Taylor Swift is good for whatever she does. And she definitely helped the NFL. I think their revenue went up about 40 million for the year based on her presence. And you know what? Good for her and Travis Kelsey. And when you have celebrities and sports stars are celebrities, hooking up together, you get a situation like Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, you're going to get a lot of attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got to jump off here.
Okay, it was a pleasure
Um,
having you. Please
yes,
tell
thank you.
tell Marjorie I adore her. And
I will.
as the show gets bigger and bigger as time goes by, I tell her I'd love to have her on the show.
I know she would enjoy talking music. She's a rocker, by the way,
Yeah,
just to
no, I
let you
would have
know.
her on just to strictly talk about music. I'd like to have,
She loves
I'd
it.
like for, well, I have over 400,000 followers, so I'd like for them to see, a different aspect of her other than being a Congress person.
Ask her what her favorite rock band is. I already know what she's going to say, but she's a rocker, so she would love to talk music with you. I know that.
Yeah, well, cool. Play her some of our stuff. See if she
I
gets
will.
it.
I will.
All right, Brian. Thank you so much for being on the show. God bless you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Yep, you too, brother.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Way everybody. Hope you enjoyed that segment with Brian Glenn. Brian Glenn TV. You can Google that. Um, Big surprise that his girlfriend is actually Marjorie Taylor Greene. Uh, but I want to remind you that this Wednesday, February 28th, at noon Pacific, we're going to have the fabulous musician from Rod Stewart, Don Teschner, on the show. That's going to be a great segment. And then on Friday, March 1st, God, I can't believe it's already March 1st this Friday. Every year flies by. We're going to have Mandolin Reese, better known as the Street Angel. Absolutely amazing person who's done a lot of good things for humanity. We share uh, many of the same beliefs and people being kind to each other, anti-war, anti-crime, all of that. But she's a very special person. She's literally an earth angel. I believe that God sends people down here that are actually, they're human beings, but their souls are angelic, and she's one of them. So please don't miss that show. That'll be at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. And we're going to close the show out. We're going to close the show out with our new music video, Sip the Cup. Uh, Please watch it. If you enjoy it, go to YouTube, give it a like and a nice comment. And we'll see you all on Wednesday with Don Teschner from Rod Stewart at noon Pacific time. Until then, stay safe and keep on rocking. your bed, safe, warm, and cozy, hidden in your head. Can't use me in your schemes, repeating all these things as different means. Sip the cup, tears of blood. Angels watch from high above. Orders from the right, the left begins to fight. Serpents form in line behind the sound of swine. Clash of metal rings, 1,000 voices sing. Wind carries the scent over bodies bent. Can't use me in your schemes, repeating all these things as different means. Sip the cup, tears of blood. Angels watch from high above. What a sight to see, what will never be. Rivers run deep with the hearts of sheep. Can't use me